Hello, everybody, and welcome to Church at Home with Rachel. I I feel the need today to really talk about something that is very specifically Christian. For those of you who have been hanging out with me for a while, you know I never try to push anything down anybody's throat. I am a Christian. Obviously, I'm a bishop in the Anglican Church, and I do not try to convince people to believe in Jesus. I know that there are many of you who watch who have different opinions, they have different ideas. Some people aren't Christians. Some people have no sort of set belief in the divine or anything like that. And that's okay because I'd rather have a conversation with you in such a way that maybe we share something with one another, or maybe I give you some new insights into things, and vice versa, rather than trying to say, hey, this is the way it is, get on board, or die. But there are times when I do have to absolutely say, this is what I believe. This is who I am. I am a Christian. I am a follower of Jesus Christ. And today I think I really need to just talk about that because I am getting so very frustrated by the things that are being said and done in the name of Jesus Christ. I am really getting frustrated by, and this is something that actually the reason I'm fired up about this today is because of something I saw on Facebook that was actually posted by um, someone close to me, someone I'm related to. Not the person I've talked about before who just sort of drives me nuts, but this person lives in Canada, and has very wildly different political views than I do, but who I believe is sort of falling into that whole Christian nationalism thing that if you're going to be Christian, then you have to be very right wing, that this is the only way to go. And I'm so fed up with the idea that Christianity looks right wing and cannot be woke. I hate the word woke. I don't hate the word woke. I love the word woke. If to wake up means to pay attention, to be alert. And so when people use the word woke in a bad way, in a negative way, it really goads me. It really bothers me. But I also know that for some people, it's just a word that really gets under their skin. And so I don't want to use it that often. But I'm worried because we are losing Christ. For those of us who are Christian, we are losing Christ in this movement of Christian nationalism, which is flowing from the South and heading right into Canada. So here we go. But the fact is, I would like to take it right back. I want to go away from talking about being Christian. I want to go right back to something I've been reading about, and something that Archbishop Michael Curry, who was the former um, primate or presiding bishop of the Episcopal Church. It's the Anglican version of the church in the United States, TEC, the Episcopal Church, TEC. He's retired now, but from the beginning of his ministry as the presiding bishop, as the primate of the United States for the Anglicans, he referred to what he was doing and what he was talking about and what he was calling the clergy and the Anglicans, the Episcopalians of the United States to do, is calling them to fall into the Jesus movement. The Jesus movement. And the fact is, I think we're called to be there again. I don't want to debate Christ. I don't want to debate like 2,000 years of Christian theology. But the fact is, I think we really need to get right back to the basics, get right back to who Jesus was. Jesus wasn't Christian. He was not Christian. Jesus was actually Jewish. And he didn't look like you and me. He didn't have white skin and blonde or dark brown hair that would be flowing, as in all of those pictures, that famous picture of I stand at the door and knock from Revelation, where there's no handle on the door and he's holding a lamp, a light, and he's knocking on the door. Very, very white Anglo-Saxon Protestant he was painted, and that has painted the imaginations of Christians in the West for way too long. We need to smarten up and fly right and acknowledge Jesus was a child of the Middle East. He probably was relatively short given today's expectations of how tall a man should be. He probably had darker, ruddier skin. I imagine his father, Joseph, was a carpenter, so I imagine his hands weren't all smooth and milky. They would probably be calloused and hard from standing and working alongside his earthly father. His feet, remember, they didn't have Nikes and they didn't have Kodiak work boots then. They would wear sandals. and the roads weren't paved for the most part. So, there might have been bricks, but there would not have been, concrete and all the pavement that we have these days. So his feet would probably also have been hard and calloused and always dirty. We need to embrace that. We need to come back to who Jesus was and what he said and what he stood for and walk on from there. We need to reclaim the Jesus movement. I want to be a bishop who leads my people toward a life in which they live with Jesus. I want people to be able to understand that it's okay to get mad at God sometimes. It's okay to say, I don't understand what is going on, because I think it's actually unhealthy if we don't do that. Right now, we're living in a world where there's a whole heck of a lot it would be legitimate to say, I don't understand what's going on. And we would probably look like we're like burying our heads in the sand if we were to honestly say, I never get angry. None of this is threatening. None of what's happening around me concerns me. I'm not bothered a bit by it. If we are, then I think that whatever medications we're on are working a little too well, because we're not living in reality. Jesus walked and talked with his disciples, with his friends, fishermen and tax collectors and other people from the community, some 12 random guys he gathered in. And sometimes there were up to 72 or more, and thousands that he sat and spoke to as they ate a meal on a hillside. Jesus met with the very people who were around him, and he hung out with them. He was not up high in the sky. He wasn't holier than thou. Jesus was real. And I can imagine they had some good knockdown dragouts, some good fights and some theological debates about the Torah and the Talmud. I can imagine the things that he was trying to tell them, which were not contrary to what they'd been taught in shul. When they went to the temple, the synagogues, when they went to their schools and they learned the things that they were learning, Jesus was teaching them from the same scripture. He didn't have the Bible as we have it now. He didn't have the New Testament, which is all about him. He didn't even have the Gospels. He was the one that they were written about after he died. He had the very same teachings that they did. And yet his teachings seemed absolutely revolutionary, because didn't he simply go back to what God had been saying from the beginning? Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your mind, with all your soul, with all your strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. When you live in a world like we live in right now, that is revolutionary. And that is what we need to get back to. It's not about whether or not immigrants are bad or good. It's not about whether the economy is bad or good, because, Jesus doesn't say much at all about the economy. At one point, he turns the tables over in the temple because of the cheating and the ridiculousness and the fact that they were placing their energies and their thoughts on the finances rather than God. And at some point he says something like, render unto Caesar what is Caesar, and unto God what is God's. And we're living in a world that doesn't take a look at all the things that Jesus said and realize it's just a couple of little things over here, just a tiny fraction of what Jesus actually said. We're living in a world that talks about Christianity and then brings Jesus in and talks about the economy and money and how we need to hoard it and we need to not take care of other people and we need to be more worried about how much in debt we are than whether or not we're feeding people and clothing them. Something is askew there. And my challenge right now is we all need to go back to the Jesus movement. Maybe, I'm not saying we should, but maybe we need to consider, do we need to go back in with our language and not drop the Christian parts of our language, but maybe we need to focus some more time on the Jesus part of our language, because right now Christian is getting wrapped up, painted with, tarred and feathered with the whole Christian nationalism stuff that is not even close to being what it is that true believers in Jesus believe and live for and work for and hope for. So I invite you to walk with me as I follow in the footsteps, I hope, I follow in the footsteps of Archbishop Curry as we move in the Jesus movement. That needs to be what we're doing. We need to get right back to basics and say, who are we following? We're following Jesus. And as much as I'm not a big fan of what would Jesus do, the WWJD thing, it's too clicky, cliche. We really do need to start sitting down and thinking, if Jesus were here right now having this conversation with us, what would he tell us? What advice would he give to us? How would he expect us to treat ourselves, our families, and everyone else? That's where I think we need to be in this moment. And if we make our decisions and take our actions from that kind of conversation, that kind of reflection, then we are 1,000 times better, in a better place to start than if we just allow ourselves to sink into the morass that is this conversation about what is Christianity today in the world that we live in. Let's just go back to basics, folks. Let's just go back to the Jesus movement. What do you think? Have a great day. God bless you. And I will see you again soon for Church at Home with Rachel.